my guilt, state of corruption. I told you in the last 5 videos that I was moving pieces on a chessboard. And our last piece was the FBI and the absolute corruption. What turns out to be the FBI being the head of the deep state. I think our video on that evidence absolutely proves it. Well, now I'm going to collateralize it, okay? I promised you the last video was going to be about the IRS, and it is. But I had to explain to you where we are and the importance of what you're going to see in this IRS video. What you're going to have to understand is the IRS puts you in jail, garnishes your wage, takes your home, auctions off my home and the business through the Department of Revenue. But it was the IRS, all corruptly. Okay, so understand who they are and the importance of what we're talking about. These criminals can take your freedom. All right. Now the video you're going to see, we're going to itemize every piece. But this was the point I cannot have you miss. We have got the Treasury Inspector Generals for Taxation, TITCA. The IRS answers to the Treasury. The man at this time, who later resigned because of this, Camus. Now, who's Tim Camus? Tim Camus is the Deputy Inspector General of TITCA, in charge of investigations. Now let's hold on to that for a second. In charge of investigations. I am telling you, there's no more powerful person in this United States when it comes to investigating the IRS for corruption, for extortion, for fraud, for mail fraud, than TITCA. We didn't just get an agent. We've got the head, the Deputy Inspector General, the highest person investigating in this country. Now let's think what we have here. And again, I'll show you through the video, but let's hit this directly in the heart. Tom Morley, a TITCA agent, that you're going to hear him on tape. But he made a phone call to Tim Camus, and you'll hear briefly. You'll hear, Tim, this is your case. I want you to hear that clip.
Good times, Tim. This is going to be your case.
Next, he goes on to say, I told him nothing. I gave him nothing.
I said nothing. I did nothing. I didn't want to.
But then lastly, you're going to hear him say to a colleague standing next to him, Chris, I'm going to tell him we have a plant in his office. And they did.
I'm going to call him, Chris, and I'm going to tell him, like, we have a plant. We have an undercover.
They were covering up the crimes of the IRS rather than turning them in. They ran a 3.5-year cover-up. Thomas Morley used his brother, Curtis Morley, an accountant, to intercept my mail from the IRS for over 3 years. When I received that, I called Tom Morley, who I was working with for these 3.5 years. He gives me the number of Tim Camus. It was a race to call Tim, and he won, except for he didn't hang up the phone, and I recorded him. Now, I want you to think about this. Tim Camus, the Deputy General of the Treasury, on the phone with an agent I worked for 3.5 years, was collecting evidence, said it was the worst corruption in the history of the IRS. And it is. It's got Senator Shaheen behind it, which is why she doesn't want to get vetted. Okay? We have Camus and Morley on tape. That envelope of mail that was collected by Curtis Morley that came to me whole, unopened, all those years. Ready? We showed you in the FBI video, and we'll show you again in this. The FBI, and in particularly, U.S. Attorney Lelling, the most powerful U.S. attorney in this country. This guy could be your next Attorney General of the United States. This is the level of corruption that we're speaking. These are the kind of people that we're dealing with. So, we've got an inventory sheet. Okay, so let me go steps. You're going to see a settlement. You know what you see on that settlement? IRS, Tim Powell. Tim Powell was the manager of the IRS. And you're going to see another email saying they wanted to give me $50 million. So now the IRS have motive to have something bad happen to me. That cover-up was me turning around and refusing their money. So Lelling ran that cover-up all that time. Camus, along with Titka, the Treasury, your last bastion of protection when it comes to the IRS, ran a cover-up operation. Now here's the beauty. Ready? Let's take a look at Lelling's inventory list. You see the $50 million settlement. You see the mail from the IRS. You see acknowledging having the tape of Camus and Morley. The U.S. Attorney Lelling has every single piece. Settlement and the corruption of Titka. Right down to the mail, right down to the recording. There are no accidents. Okay? So take a second. This is important. One of the most powerful individuals in the FBI in this country, potentially your Attorney General, is guilty of a cover-up and working through the deep state, covering and protecting the IRS. The IRS, its most protected Deputy Inspector General of this country, of the Treasury, who's a head of investigation, was committing fraud for over 3.5 years. He was expecting Morley's phone call. It was a complete setup, the whole thing. So you remember the settlement. There's your motive. Lelling, you see that he has the evidence in his own words and his own receipts. You see that Camus is on recording, working with Morley, and you see the mail, and it's all right there. You understand? We get the FBI and the IRS at its highest levels. So this video is going to expose and shock you, but please do not miss that point. It is the deep state. Now, the other thing I want to tell you is, I told you I moved these pieces in order. I gave you the FBI just last video. I told you that the president was going to have to make a decision. Well, that was 2 videos ago, right? I said to him, the thing with Sununu, Republican governors, senators who are part of this deep state. This deep state isn't just Republicans. Although Biden's in the deep state, he's a puppet for this deep state. He doesn't even have to do anything, which I haven't seen him do. If you remember the video with Sununu, the Republican governor, Trump traded with him for his support on my evidence. And I told you in that video, I said, there's going to come a time the president's is going to be disappointed with those Republicans' assistants. He sees now where the economy isn't what it was because of the virus, that he's in trouble. You can feel that he's in trouble. These Republicans aren't supporting him. So remember what I said in that video? I said, Mr. President, and I'm saying it now, you're coming my way. I told you there was 2 options. You picked the one that's losing. And you're just smart enough now to turn around and say, you know something? I don't like where the numbers are going. And you shouldn't. So think about this. What was the other door that I gave you? To turn around and use this evidence, bust the FBI, use this against the IRS, show the people you're against corruption that's controlling this country from the police on up. It's going on, what you're seeing, what's going on in this country is a product of corruption. No one's coming out and telling you directly, but you can see it. Everything that I've told you all these years, tell me where I've been wrong. You know what? It's hard to change the truth. It's hard to turn around and argue what we've become and what's happening to us. So President Trump, remember that choice? You only had two. Now you got one. You gotta come through us. You've got to use my evidence. And Aaron Day, remember I told you to snap that witness up, Mr. President? I got a feeling maybe you did. They're threatening Day. Walker even sued Day. Could it be that Day's giving you this information and evidence? And now the choice is to use this evidence to expose these people and, you know, win an election. I mean, if you see another way, and I know you don't, I'm the one that told you you only had two choices when you thought you had more. Now you got one. All right. And now this thing with the FBI, I'm going to show you a quick screen. You know what the FBI did? They changed their description. It used to be law enforcement. You know what they now are? National security. You know what national security means? It means they can do anything and just call it national security. How's that? The FBI, you want to know if they're running the show? They got a license to kill. Really? And what are they going to say? National security. We supported and protected a drug cartel. Well, there's things you don't know. Oh, yes, there is. June 23rd, 2020. Just so you know, we're absolute and we're current. And that IRS video is coming. But I needed you to hear me to understand, one, the importance of what you're going to hear in that video. And I wanted you to understand where we are in this. We're in an election, a very small window. And I'm going to tell you something. You know when you hear the truth? In great joy or great anger, that's when you listen. Right now, in these windows with this election, I feel that the president, for his own well-being, and his mind too, has to win this election. We are fighting some evil bastards, you know. And he knows that now too. So I think everything is open for consideration. He may just do what seemed impossible, which seemed like he wasn't going to do. And that means he was going to play politics. But let's take it to the people. They'll know the truth when they hear it. Mike Gill, State of Corruption.